I don't see you, Angie, period. Let me resend this to each of you. Just resent the email link, period. It looks like they did change the number on it, period. I apologize, exclamation point. Hello.
Hello.
It's popping up as Michael. Is this Allison?
Yeah. Yes, I'm on his computer.
Okay. Stacy's joining. Awesome. Looks like Angie's coming on. Sorry guys about that. They changed the number on me. Just they never done that before, so that I know of. Okay. We're missing Nancy. Angie, have you talked to
Nancy is at a sewing class.
Oh, okay. Well, this is recording, so maybe I can upload it and share it to the link again. Cool. Is Allison, is Michael going to be able to join us?
No, unfortunately.
Okay.
He's at work.
Okay. All right. Well, let's just dive on in. I wanted to talk to you guys tonight about your gut health. And I think I mentioned last week I had my fake guts. I call it my fake guts. I made it years ago out of material when I was doing education class for, it was a group of elementary kids going through a gymnasium type thing they had set up for a health fair. So and I've used it all the time since then. But I just want to kind of go into detail on it. I'm going to kind of pull in a little bit of functional medicine with it. But the reason why you guys are eating healthy God-made foods instead of just having carbs that are from junk, there is a reason for that. And that's what I want to really kind of go into detail with you. I will do a lot of standing probably, so I'll have to readjust. Maybe I won't. Okay, so if you can imagine, I am going to stand. Okay, you've got all of these intestines all crammed in here, 25 feet of them. And everything begins in the mouth, goes through the esophagus, and into the stomach. So the lower part of this stomach, this is where your protein starts to break down and digest. Your carbs start to break down and digest in your mouth. And a good test for that is you put a cracker in your mouth and you let it sit there for just 3 seconds, it's already starting to kind of melt a little bit. That's the enzymes that's produced in your mouth that starts to attack the carbohydrates. So you don't have that in there for the fat, though, nor do you have it up there for your protein. It all waits till it gets down to here, the bottom part of the stomach, the parietal cells. This is also where your acid is produced. So here's the thing with your food coming through. If you eat large chunks of food really fast, like if you're a fast eater, you're not going to be able to chew your food up really well, which means less surface area, so larger chunks. So when it comes down and it sits in here, what happens is that your parietal cells at the bottom part of your stomach start to come in and attack that food, and it works really hard to try to break it down. If it was in tiny little chunks, it wouldn't take very long before it's done trying to break it down further, and it's going to push it on through into your intestines. But if it's large chunks, we have issues. So think about when your food starts fermenting. Have you ever opened up a bottle of like kombucha that's got chia seeds in it, or anything that's got something that started fermenting a little bit? When you start fermenting food in an enclosed space, what that food does as it's fermenting, it starts to eat up all the oxygen around it. So once it's eaten up all the oxygen around it, now you have some swelling, kind of an indigestion type feeling, heavy feeling. When you tilt your head back, you're all of a sudden given some air space. When you give anything that's fermenting a little bit more air, it's going to go towards that air, the air space. So when that happens, now you have what's called reflux. So when you've got reflux issues, the first thing a medical doctor is going to do is put you on a reflux medicine. What that does is suppress these poor little overworked parietal cells even more, and they're having a hard time keeping up with it anyway, and it will eventually lead to something called irritable bowel, which affects further on down the road all of your intestines. So let's correct this by not having to go on any type of reflux medicine. Let's correct it in the most natural ways possible and not have to deal with big pharma. So the best way to do it is chew your food up really well. When you chew your food up really well, the parietal cells can do their job, and there's no fermenting that takes place. So it pushes it right on through, and it does what it needs to do. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
So very important, very important. So anybody that's got any type of reflux issues, think about that. You know, my goal is to get them off of reflux medicine, because I do not want them having irritable bowel issues down the road. I don't want them having enzyme issues down the road. And that's what happens. It starts to suppress everything within the body, because there's always that negative domino effect when you're dealing with the big pharma. So now on to your intestines, this 25 feet of your guts. Now, this right here is also known as your second brain. And the reason why, in the lower right quadrant of your guts, of everything all wadded up there, is where the majority part of your serotonin is produced. Are you guys familiar with serotonin?
Yes.
Okay, serotonin is what prevents you from having depression. So if you have a low amount of serotonin, you're going to have a higher risk of depression. Now, serotonin, a small percentage is actually produced in the brain, but most of it, 90%, is produced in the gut. So when you come in and you're depressed, the doctor's going to give you medicine to fix the brain, but he never addresses the gut. The gut, if the gut is clean and healthy, you're going to have 90% of your serotonin produced. No need to go on an antidepressant in order to get that serotonin up. We just need to get our gut healthy. We need to clean it up. And in this time of the year, when you don't have much sun, then you might need to maybe give yourself a little bit extra vitamin D3, because we don't have enough sun around this time. On days like this, when it's warm, go outside and allow the sleeves to be shown, or your arms to be shown, short sleeves. Get a little bit of rays, because that's what helps to basically convert over into a D3 form that's really good for the body. You need some vitamin D in order for the calcium and several other vitamins and minerals to absorb into your body. Vitamin D is needed for metabolism. It's needed for hormones. So you've got to have the vitamin D3. Very important. I have my clients go on a vitamin D3 drop, which is sublingual. So it basically bypasses the gut because typically their gut is unhealthy. So it goes right under the tongue and absorbs right into the bloodstream just like that, which is where I want it to go. If they have a very unhealthy gut, it's not going to absorb real well. In fact, anybody who's got an unhealthy gut, if you're taking any type of capsules or vitamins, you have a chance of it not absorbing very well. So it's best to go in a liquid form to hit the bloodstream really quick. So you kind of bypass the gut. Also, if you're taking any supplements, you want to try to make sure they're good quality supplements. I always say if you don't purchase from me, and most of mine are from functional medicine companies, if you don't purchase from me, go to Good Measure Market or the Natural Food Store, because both of them, the owners are very, very picky about what they carry. Just don't go to Walmart, Walgreens, and Amazon. That's just not, don't even waste your time and money there. Okay, so let's move on into the intestines, the 25 feet here. Inside this lining, the inside part, if you kind of think about it, we're one big donut. We got a 25-foot long donut hole, basically, if you want to think about it like that. But the inside lining of this donut hole is very, very crucial because it has little hair-like structures that pull out vitamins and minerals from all of your foods. Now, are you guys familiar with that cartoon Bart Simpson? Have y'all seen that?
Oh, I was not allowed to watch that.
Well, I don't get into it, but I've seen him, and he kind of reminds me of Bart Simpson heads. So if you can imagine, here's his head with his hair sticking straight up. You've got a lot of Bart Simpson heads that line the inside lining of your intestines. So as food comes through your intestines, these little hair-like structures are pulling out all the vitamins and minerals from the foods that you're eating, and helps it to go right into the bloodstream to disperse it to the rest of your body. But here's the problem. If you're not eating good, healthy foods, if you're eating processed foods, fast foods, sugars, if you're on antibiotics, if you live on a constant state of stress all the time, because you're pulling in the sympathetic nervous system that affects your inside lining. What happens, all of these little hair-like structures start to die. And when they die, and now you've got food coming through, nothing's absorbing. You got malabsorption taking place. Eventually, if you continue this crazy rat race of eating the way you're eating, if you do that, and maybe stay under a constant state of stress, eventually these little Bart Simpson heads, now with no hair, is going to separate. And when it separates, now when food comes through, it's going to leak right into areas that it should not be in. These little heads are called your microbiome. You guys heard of that term before? You want good, healthy microbiome. Okay? When these separate, now you've got food leaking through, and it's called leaky gut. You guys heard of leaky gut before?
Yes.
Okay, good. That's what leaky gut is. It all starts with destroying these little hair-like structures and eventually pulling the cells apart. So let's just say you have any form of thyroid issues in your family, and you have thyroid issues possibly yourself. Thyroid, the hormone for your thyroid, and gluten, the chemical structure of gluten, is very, very similar to your thyroid hormone. Keep that in mind, because if you're eating food and it's leaking through, anytime food leaks through, your body creates something called antibodies. It's like little army cells that wants to come in and attack these foreign invaders because they're in an area they shouldn't be. So it's coming in and attacking your food. But let's just say you ate something with gluten in it. So gluten comes through and it leaks through and through your leaky gut. And you've got these army cells attacking this gluten. The chemical structure is very similar to your thyroid hormone. So now part of your army cells is like, whoa, something's taking place up north. Split off and head up north, and now these little army cells are attacking your own thyroid. This is Hashimoto's, hypothyroidism. Okay, so you want to avoid gluten at all costs if you have any form of thyroid issues in your family, or if you dabble with any type of thyroid risk. Okay, because you want to avoid that just to be on the safe side. And everybody who's got Hashimoto's definitely has to avoid it, for sure. So if you think about it, when these cells separate, what you're starting is autoimmune issues. I'm talking fibromyalgia, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, even arthritis starts in at that point too. But chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, most of your autoimmune issues where your body starts to attack itself all begins in the gut. Because what happens is when you separate this, the body starts to create an army of attackers to come against that because it's trying to fight off that foreign food that's not supposed to be in there. Does all this make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here's the goal. We don't want these cells to separate. So we want to heal these little hair-like structures and have them come back right back into Bart Simpson heads again and make sure that they're side by side. Maybe that looks better, side by side. So how you do that is by eating God-made foods. You can consume prebiotics, which feeds the probiotics just by eating fruit. Fruit is loaded with prebiotics. You don't have to go buy any prebiotics unless you want some. You totally can. And then probiotics. If you've already got an unhealthy gut, you'll need to take a probiotic. A good strong probiotic eventually, but you don't want to go into a real strong one at first because you might end up in the bathroom with diarrhea. So I always say go start low and go slow as we migrate up. So I tend to put my clients on either a 1,500 billion CFU or a 30 billion CFU for the first week. You take your probiotics at nighttime, right before bed. The next week, we double it. Same thing at nighttime. The third week, we triple it. And then by that time, you should be out midweek. You should be out of your probiotic. And then you can go back and get a stronger dosage one. Let's just say if you started off at 30 billion CFUs, by this time you're at 90 billion CFUs. You come back and you get a 100 billion CFUs and only take one. Again, take that at nighttime. That will help to heal this back up and allow these little hair-like structures to do how the Lord created it to do. Pull out all your vitamins and minerals in order to disperse it through the rest of your body. Does that make sense? Have you guys heard of how that's been explained before? Okay, so that's crucial. So I've had somebody ask me today, they sent a picture and said, how does this look? And it had everything broken down in categories of this is a carb plus a protein. This is a protein plus a fat, which was great. But there was a few items on there that I would consider man-made, processed. So be very cautious about consuming man-made type foods. I always say if it's grown from the ground, picked from the tree, provided by our creator, consider it good. If it came from a box, a package, a factory, a very long extended shelf life, or if it has any kind of ingredients on it that you can't pronounce, they maybe look like chemical names, you definitely want to avoid it. Try to avoid it as much as you can. Just focus on real God-made foods because that's where you're going to get the most energy to fuel your metabolism. So you guys are timing your carbs, your macros, around your workout and protein throughout the whole time. But not only are you doing that, you're basically doing a form of a detox because you're overloading your body with real food, vitamins and minerals, which is exactly what your metabolic cycle needs. It doesn't just need carbs, proteins, and fats. It's got to have some of the vitamins and minerals, the phytonutrients that are found in your foods. So that's crucial. Do you have any questions over that? Gut health is very important. It is, again, 80% of your overall health, your immune system. So typically if somebody comes in and let's just say they're having sinus issues tend to be linked to dairy. So I'm asking them, okay, how much dairy are you consuming? Do you have a dairy sensitivity? Do you have a dairy allergy? So if anything that's sinusy tends to, I want to get them off of dairy and see if that starts to clear up. And 99% of the time it clears up. It's just dairy. So at this time of the year, more people tend to be a little more sensitive to dairy. Maybe it's a cold and flu season. That's what it is. I don't know, but I see it more often. So definitely try to get off of dairy if that's what your issue is. I always switch them over to like an almond milk or coconut milk, a cashew milk instead. Trying to think of anything else that I'm leaving out. Your irritable bowel, again, is when you've got some issues. Either you are not able to go to the bathroom at all, and there's a certain probiotic that can definitely help out with that, with irritable bowel for constipation. And there's also irritable bowel where you have all of a sudden diarrhea. Typically it's a constipation though. So there's particular probiotics you definitely need to go on for that. If you live in a state of what I said stressed a while ago, that is a type of sympathetic dominance. So when you've got your autonomic nervous system split into parts, such as the parasympathetic and the sympathetic is when you're wired or stressed, your mind doesn't want to shut down at nighttime, it's hard to fall asleep. The opposite of that is your parasympathetic. That's when you're so relaxed, your toes are in the sand, not a care in the world, and you just don't care who fixes dinner because you're not doing it. You don't really give a care at all. So it's just one of those but your body has to have a balance of both. When you're exercising, you're pulling from your sympathetic system, which is okay because it's only short-lived. But when you are constantly having no sleep, less than 7 hours of sleep, nonstop, you're not sleeping well, you are under some emotional stress, or maybe you have carried some trauma into your adult life that you experienced as a child, your body remains under a state of stress. So you're going to be more sympathetic all the time, sympathetic dominant. If you're having anxiety attacks, you're more sympathetic dominant. If you have just stressful days at work, you're going to be more sympathetic dominant. So when you're like that, you've got to find a balance and a form of peace, whether it be doing yoga nidra throughout the day. Are you guys familiar with yoga nidra?
No.
Okay. I'll show you that on an app. It helps to calm the brain down. It gives it basically in 22 minutes. It's like your brain has had 4 hours of rest, which is good. So you want to calm that sympathetic nervous system down. That'll prevent against constipation. Plus, when you calm it down, it allows you to go to sleep much better at nighttime. When that sympathetic nervous system is so wired, it has to have some magnesium to calm it down. So when it does, it's pulling magnesium from other parts of the body that need it. Your gut needs magnesium to go poop. Your body needs magnesium at nighttime to relax and allow you to fall asleep so that melatonin can kick in naturally. So when you are having stressful times, you're going to need a little bit more magnesium. So that could be something you might want to look into, is adding in a little bit of supplemental magnesium just to help calm the nerves during stressful times. I'm kind of picky about the type of magnesium. I use a reacted magnesium, and I typically start everybody out around 400 milligrams, but I've got some clients that are dealing with childhood trauma and they live in a stressful marriage, or maybe they have a very stressful work related situation. Then I have to up it to 600 milligrams. And at that point, I'm trying to get them to go see a mental health therapist, just for that type of guidance on how to let that form of stress go. So magnesium is also very, very crucial. So it definitely gets the gut moving. That's for sure. So when somebody comes to me and says, okay, I can't go to the bathroom. What's going on? Well, are you drinking enough water? Are you eating enough fiber? You might have increased your protein, but are you drinking enough water with that? And typically people who are exercising quite a bit, like CrossFitters, they tend to be a little bit lower on magnesium intake, or not on intake. They burn up magnesium a lot quicker. So they might need a little bit more magnesium. Any athletes that are constantly working out will tend to need a little bit more magnesium. And our soil has become a little more and more depleted through the years. So even if you rely on all organic food for everything, you could possibly still be lacking in magnesium, especially if you're overworking. You know, if you're doing CrossFit 4 days a week and adding in running or adding in hot yoga and things like that, it can definitely add extra stress on the body that needs a little bit more magnesium with it. Is all this making sense?
Mm-hmm.
This is a lot of information tonight. But I wanted to cover gut health because, again, it is known as your second brain. It is 80% of your overall immune system. So when somebody comes in to see me, that's the first thing I'm going to be trying to fix. Because when you fix the gut, you're fixing brain issues, emotional issues, food sensitivity issues. You're starting to heal up the nervous system. There's so much that takes place within that gut lining. Plus, you have to have a good, healthy gut in order for everything to absorb. And you want it to absorb really well. So just think about maybe getting on a good probiotic. And if you have any kind of stress going on, think about adding in a magnesium just in case, but definitely a probiotic. So I wouldn't rely just on yogurt alone. It's got some probiotics in it. Kefir has some in it. If you make your own homemade kefir, which is really easy to make, you have way more probiotics in that compared to a commercial type kefir. But again, if you've got dairy issues, having sinus issues, you might want to be real cautious about the yogurt and the kefirs. So are you guys familiar with kefir?
Yes, I made it for a long time. I need to get back to making it.
Okay. Yeah, it's really good. It's got more probiotics in it than kombucha, more than water kefir, water kefir and coconut milk kefir. It's got more than that. So it would have the most of all, most probiotics of all those different types of drinks. And of course, if you make your own homemade kombucha, you have a little bit more probiotics than store-bought kombucha. So it's really kind of hard to regulate homemade kombucha. If you don't pull it out and get it done at the right time, it ends up being very fermented.
It does. I've done it.
Yeah. It's like, woo, okay, you get a great buzz off of it. It's crazy. So, well, do you guys have any questions?
Christy, on the fruit, you talked about the prebiotics. Would you still, I know last week you asked if we were planning on staying on the Eat to Perform. And I know that schedule or that layout says to only eat fruit post-workout. Is that still what you would recommend?
Yes, honestly, I would, because you have less chance of fructose is one of those iffy type issues. So some research studies show that some of your fructose can actually easily be converted over into fat quicker than other types of carbs. So I would always say if you're a little leery and you're not really sure how your body's receiving it, I would definitely try to schedule it around your workout just to be on the safe side. And again, it's conflicting research, but it really kind of points, I'm going to take the safer route and say, well, let's just try to avoid all that conflict and try to schedule it right around my workout time.
Okay. Can it be pre and post or just strictly post?
It can be pre and post.
Okay.
Yeah. Good question. Anybody else have questions? You're easy tonight. Very easy. Is anybody going to watch the inaugural, whatever it's called, the
State of the Union?
Something? Has it been going on? I don't know.
Yeah, it started at 8.
Oh, it did? Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, you guys are missing this.
That's okay. Stephen Colbert is live afterwards, so it should be interesting.
Oh, my goodness. Okay.
I'm sure Michael's watching it on his phone. Very likely.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, I'm excited for you. I'm hearing good things from each of you, and I'm very pumped about this. So keep up the good work. Meal prep is crucial. Just know that.
Yep.
Okay. Well, you guys have a good.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.